Hello, and welcome to another look with Christian King. Today I want to talk a little bit about weight cutting in MMA and mostly the UFC. The UFC has the largest weight cuts in the sport of MMA fighters. I don't have all the exact numbers in front of me, but the vast majority of large cuts take place in the UFC. Fighters cut a significant amount more per weight class in the UFC. You often see people like Tom Duquesnoy on the European circuit was a successful featherweight, and he seems like a small bantamweight in the UFC, and that's a 10-pound lower weight class. So large weight cuts take place mostly in the UFC is my point here. And recently, earlier this week, Dana White came out, the president of the UFC, and stated that he would like to take the weigh-ins back to the original ceremonial weigh-ins that take place live on TV. And just to give a little quick history, weigh-ins used to take place live on TV, where the audience could see, and if a fighter missed weight, you saw it on TV, on Fox Sports 1. Now, the weigh-ins take place in the morning, and a few journalists are there, but mostly it's not a broadcasted event. It's just the doctors and a few media members. And they're talking about maybe going back to the ceremonial 4 p.m. weigh-ins because so many fighters have been missing weight, and they're losing money because of it when fights get canceled, and Dana White's fed up with it. So the first thing I should say is that there's pros and cons to both types of weigh-ins. A lot of fighters are going to bed dehydrated with the morning weigh-ins, but a lot of those fighters went to bed dehydrated with the afternoon weigh-ins and then were dehydrated throughout the day waiting on the car to come get them to take them to the ceremonial weigh-in. But it does seem like more fighters are missing weight in the morning weigh-ins, which is unfortunate because that was designed to give them more time to rehydrate. It takes your brain a little longer than 24 hours to rehydrate, and when your brain is dehydrated, you're more likely to get knocked out or concussed. So, and I think you're more likely to get tired quicker in a fight the less time you've had to rehydrate. So the morning weigh-ins were a good idea, but the problem is that you gave these fighters that extra time to rehydrate, and they all decided, or some of them decided, I should say, that they can just cut more weight because of that, and it's leading to a lot of weight misses. So the first thing I should probably state is that Dana White does not control that decision. He can say whatever he wants, and he certainly can have some input in it, but that's an athletic commission issue. That's not a Dana White issue. That's not his choice. So what's probably going to happen? I would say probably what's going to happen is nothing. The morning weigh-ins will continue as they are. That's the most likely scenario. And if the UFC wants to prevent the fights from falling out, they just need to maybe do a weight check more often in fighters' camps, check weight more thoroughly throughout fight week, monitor fighters that are at risk of missing weight, and maybe just really give a no tolerance policy. Hey, if you're more than a pound over, you're not getting to fight. But then you're losing money because of that. So it's a tricky scenario. What do I think would be the best solution? Okay, so this is just my thoughts, and I have heard this echoed by a few people. But my initial thought about this whole thing from the start has been, why can't we just have the weigh-ins open all day from 9 to 4? And you'll do the ceremonial weigh-ins, and fighters will have weighed in by the time that they go out on that stage. So that will continue to just be a mock weigh-in, mostly just for the face-offs on TV. It's the main purpose of that currently is just to give people a look at the fighters, but they're already on weight at that point and have already weighed in and started rehydrating. I think that would be the ideal scenario. That way, if they want to weigh in the morning, great. If they want to weigh in the afternoon, great. If they want to weigh in early evening, great. It's all open all day. I don't know the logistics of that for the commissions. I don't know if they are not okay with that. Maybe the fighter would have to tell them a week ahead of time which time slot they're going to shoot for, maybe give 2-hour windows throughout that 9 to 4 period, and allow the fighters to choose which time they're going to aim for. But, I think ideally they would just have the whole day open to make weight whenever they want, and if they make weight later in the day, then they had more time to cut. And if they make the weight earlier in the day, they have more time to rehydrate. So it would kind of be up to them which one of those is more important. Do I need more time to cut weight, or do I want to do it the right way, fight at an appropriate weight class, and be rehydrated? You have such a depth of different types of fighters per weight class. Let's talk about, some of the biggest weight cuts take place at 155. So let's talk about my favorite division, lightweight, 155 pounds. One of my favorite fighters in that division, probably actually my favorite fighter in that division, would be Kevin Lee. I'm a huge Kevin Lee fan. Kevin Lee cuts an insane amount of weight. He cuts a lot of weight. He missed weight by 1 pound in his last fight. They did not give him an extra hour or two, so therefore he did have to forfeit, I believe, 20% of his purse, and his win over Edson Barboza was slightly tarnished because of that. Now, it was only a pound, so it wasn't as bad as a Darren Till situation, but still, and he certainly didn't pull a Mackenzie Dern, but still, he did miss weight. On the other hand, in that exact same weight class, we have Justin Gaethje, the action fighter, the wild man. Well, he cuts, from what I've heard at least, he cuts very little weight. He practically fights at his natural weight class. He's cutting very little weight. So when you just compare him and Kevin Lee, that's just such a huge difference in how much weight they're cutting. And then, maybe we could give an example at welterweight, we saw that. Stephen Thompson doesn't cut that much weight, and Darren Till cuts a ton. And then you go up to middleweight, and what about Robert Whittaker versus someone like Luke Rockhold? We're not suggesting that as a matchup. I don't think Luke Rockhold needs to be cutting to 85 anymore. But when he was at middleweight, right now he's injured his leg again, so he's going to be out for a while, but I believe his plan is to return at light heavyweight, so he'll have an extra 20 pounds. Should be an easy weight cut for him. But when you compare Robert Whittaker, who moved up from welterweight and easily makes the limit and prefers the morning weigh-ins, and then you have someone like Rockhold, who looks like a skeleton when he makes 185 pounds. So there's these huge differences between weight in individual weight classes. There are large differences in how much weight fighters at that weight class are cutting. So why not give them the whole 9 to 4 window, combined the early weigh-ins with the ceremonial weigh-ins, and just have it go 9 to 4 all day long. And that way, fighters can do what suits best for them. Then that way you're making up for the fact that there's such differences in how much weight people are cutting, even if they're in the same weight class. I don't think this will happen. I think what will happen is we will continue on with the morning weigh-ins, and if the UFC wants to stop fighters from missing weight, they need to monitor them better, and they need to give more incentives, or I should say disincentives for missing weight. Bigger punishments, not getting as good of fights. You could maybe even say that if you miss weight for a fight, you still get to fight, but that's going to be considered in the rankings. But then we can get into how bad the rankings are. So we could really go all day on this. But my general thought is, as a fan and someone who has a lot of respect for these athletes, I just want to see them perform at their best, and I don't want the whole week to be all about the weight cut. I want it to be about the fight. So anything we can do to make it easier on these athletes to make weight is a win for me. In an ideal world, there wouldn't be weight cutting. You would just fight people that are your same walk-around weight, and that would be simpler. And maybe add that 165-pound weight class and bump welterweight up to 175. But either way, we got a tricky situation. A lot of guys are missing weight, and a lot of wins are being tarnished because of it, and a lot of fights are being lost because of it, and it's a shame for the fans. So hopefully they'll figure some stuff out going forward, and maybe one day we will live in a world where the fight is the main focus of the week and the weight cut no longer exists.